So if you're anything like me, you probably grew up thinking Mark Twain's The Adventures of Tom Sawyer was, well, a charming relic.
Right. A simple story about a boy, a fishing rod.
And maybe the single greatest strategy for getting out of a chore in all of literature.
Exactly.
But if that's your memory of it, you are about to have those assumptions not just, challenged, but completely demolished.
We have spent a lot of time with this, wading through the source material, the critical analyses, Twain's own letters and notes. And what we found is a text that is so much more complex and, honestly, much, much darker than the Sunday school version we all got. So we're going to look past that thick varnish of nostalgia, the straw hats, the lazy summer days, that whole barefoot innocence thing.
Right.
And expose the psychological thriller and, really, the fierce social critique that Twain built right into the structure of the story. We're treating this not as a fond memory, but as a meticulously drawn map.
Exactly. Our mission today is to dive deep into a classic text that everyone thinks they know, and we're going to pull out the core argument that makes this book violently relevant right now.
Today, in the 21st century.
Yes. And here it is, the one sentence that really holds all of its modern power. This isn't a children's book. It's a gritty survival blueprint for anyone trapped in a world that wants to monetize every second of your time and sell your independent soul for a predictable paycheck.
And that framing, that sentiment, is what drives this entire deep dive. Tom Sawyer is, when you break it down, a masterclass in modern rebellion. It's a rebellion against tracked and commodified time.
Written by a man who was what? Mourning something?
He was acutely mourning the death of American independence. Twain was watching his world, the world of his youth, get swallowed up by the rigid clockwork of the Industrial Revolution.
Ah.
And he used Tom's spirit, that untamable spirit, as this kind of ghost he was desperately trying to resurrect, a symbol of the freedom he saw slipping away forever.
And that context is so key because the story, which really does start out as this lighthearted, funny series of pranks, it takes a sharp, brutal turn into some profound darkness.
It really does.
Okay, let's unpack this. Let's start with a quick narrative breakdown because we have to separate the charming pranks we all remember from the crucial, darker plot points that really change the book's entire DNA. It goes from a comedy to, frankly, a story of genuine moral panic.
To do it.
First, a non-spoiler overview, just the setup.
Okay, so the setting is Saint Petersburg, Missouri. We're talking sometime around the 1870s.
And on the surface, it's this picture-perfect little village. Right?
Oh, completely. It's designed to look idyllic. It's a sleepy, almost pastoral landscape defined by freshly painted white picket fences and the very strict, almost suffocating morality of Sunday bonnets.
But as you said, that surface charm is just the thinnest layer of paint. It's hiding a lot of violence, a lot of hypocrisy, and just this deep, simmering tension. The general premise follows our protagonist, Tom Sawyer, who is this perpetually restless kid. He's constantly battling the strict, inflexible expectations of his guardian, Aunt Polly, and this utterly joyless schoolmaster.
He's a boy who thrives on play. He finds genuine nourishment in it, and he actively avoids what Twain calls the boring, sterile currency of the adult world.
I love that phrase, sterile currency.
It's perfect, isn't it? And his initial actions in the book are all about his mastery of the idle life. He is constantly and very cleverly refusing to accept the demands of the good boy archetype that Victorian society was just screaming for.
Yeah.
Twain sets Tom up as fundamentally messy, selfish, often pretty mischievous, but always profoundly real. He's a deliberate, living rejection of that moral instruction and, that ceaseless obedience you'd find in all the Sunday school books of the era.
He's a hustler, a small-time general, an imaginative rebel. And his earliest pranks, like that famous fence scene, which we have to dive deep into later, they establish him as someone who just gets the transactional nature of his world.
And is determined to exploit its loopholes.
Exactly. But the book, it transitions from this light comedy to a high-stakes, life-or-death nightmare with shocking speed.
Okay, so this is where we get into the spoilers.
Yes. If you haven't read it, be warned, this is the point of no return.
The fun basically ends abruptly at midnight in the graveyard. The whole narrative shifts when Tom and his partner in crime, Huckleberry Finn, witness this horrific, bloody event.
The murder of Dr. Robinson by Injun Joe.
Yes, and the critical analysis is really clear on this. That single moment is the deliberate mechanism Twain uses to just strip away their childhood innocence. It's replaced instantly with this cold, hard existential terror.
And here's the key decision that defines the entire rest of the novel. They don't run to the authorities.
No, They flee, of course, but their immediate choice is silence, not civic duty.
So why the silence? It's not just that they're scared kids, is it?
It's not just cowardice. It's a layered, primitive, almost superstitious dread. They genuinely believe Injun Joe has some kind of power, maybe supernatural, maybe just pure cold steel ruthlessness, that would allow him to find them and kill them if they spoke a single word.
They see the justice system as what? Useless?
Or worse, rigged. They don't trust it to protect them.
And that profound fear, that realization that the adult world has failed them, it leads them to do something deeply primal.
They sign a blood oath, binding them irrevocably to silence. This blood oath is the definitive point of no return. It's a complete and total rejection of what Tom sees as the hollow justice and fragile authority of the adult world.
So it's them saying, the adults can't protect us.
Exactly. They realize that the adults, with all their rules, their sermons, their laws, are utterly incapable of protecting them from the true material evil that Injun Joe represents.
And the psychological cost of that silence is just immense. It transforms Tom from this playful rogue into a genuinely tragic figure.
Oh, absolutely. He's hunted. He's talking in his sleep. His subconscious is screaming the truth, while his waking mind is locked down. He feels the physical pressure of the secret on his chest, like a disease.
And the peak of that guilt is watching an innocent man, Muff Potter, this harmless town drunk, walk toward the gallows.
While the actual killer, Injun Joe, just sits there smugly in the courtroom watching.
It's unbearable.
It is, and overwhelmed by this guilt and feeling truly hunted by both the law and the killer, Tom, Huck, and their friend Joe Harper, they stage their own deaths.
They run away to Jackson's Island,
which is their intentional escape from the suffocating expectations and the mortal danger of the town, and the funeral scene. It's a moment of pure theatrical genius.
They're hiding in the church gallery, listening to the town grieve for them.
The sincere, agonizing grief of the community, only to reveal themselves in this triumphant moment of resurrection.
But the adventure isn't over, not even close. The story shifts again, this time to pure, high-stakes survival.
When Tom and Becky Thatcher get lost in McDougal's cave, the critics rightly call it the labyrinth.
Tom is stripped down to nothing but raw instinct. He's navigating this pitch-black, suffocating silence.
With only a burning candle stub, which is this powerful motif. It's the literal flickering line between life and an agonizing death.
And in that total darkness, he's forced into the crucible of adulthood.
He has to confront Injun Joe, who is truly the final boss of his childhood. And he has to protect Becky from the sheer terror of the cave.
When they are finally rescued, the town, in this moment of what they think is just good municipal efficiency, they install a heavy iron door on the cave entrance.
Right, an act of closure.
But that one act unwittingly seals the fate of the murderer.
Injun Joe dies this brutal, agonizing, drawn-out death, starving behind that enormous iron door, having been reduced to trying to eat candle ends for sustenance.
It's a visceral, deeply unsettling end, and it's such a powerful reminder that Twain's world doesn't offer these simple sanitized resolutions.
No clean getaways.
No. And then we get to the final and maybe the most profound irony of the entire book, the ending.
The treasure, they find it. $6,000 each, which is just a staggering fortune in the 1840s setting, or even in the 1870s when it was published.
But this immense wealth, it leads directly and so tragically to the civilizing of Huck Finn.
Yes. Tom wins the gold and the glory he craved, but Huck is immediately and violently trapped by the respectability that sudden success demands. The victory itself becomes a life sentence for the one person who valued freedom above all else.
Wow. So we've firmly established that the golden age memory of this book is just the wrapper. The core is moral terror and deep social critique.
That's it.
So we have to ask, who was the man who wrote this powerful ghost story, and why did he feel this urgent need to resurrect a world that was already vanishing?
Well, the first thing you have to understand is the calculated duality behind the literary persona. We're talking about Samuel Clemens, a man of vast experience.
He was a printer, a silver miner,
a seasoned traveler, and most crucially, a highly skilled riverboat pilot. He knew the world. But Mark Twain, that was the curated brand. It was the creation of a myth.
Biographers often call the Twain persona the raw, unfiltered voice of the American frontier, but you're saying it was a marketing move.
A massive self-aware marketing move. Clemens was selling a specific kind of rugged, authentic American liberty and straightforward honesty, and he often contrasted it with what he saw as the stuffiness of the Eastern literary circles.
He was building a brand.
And this brand was necessary because he was fundamentally trying to sell a ghost. The motivation for writing the book, which was published in 1876, it wasn't just nostalgia. It was this desperate, almost elegiac attempt to resurrect the spirit of his youth.
A spirit he felt was actively dying.
Exactly. By the 1870s, the modern corporate and industrial revolution was just. It was murdering the very idea of that spontaneous, unregulated, youthful freedom he remembered.
That context is just so vital. He wasn't just writing a story, he was writing an elegy for a vanishing way of life. The book is just saturated in this deep, homesick sense of loss.
And that loss is physically symbolized by the geography that shaped Clement's own life. His deep personal connection to the Mississippi River informs every single decision Tom and Huck make.
It wasn't just a river to him.
Not at all. In his view, it was what he famously called the Great Brown God.
The Great Brown God. That phrase carries so much weight. It suggests power, sprawl, unpredictability, something ancient.
And an absolute, unchecked authority that predates human law and satiety. Precisely. The Mississippi represented a sprawling, shifting artery of the continent that promised absolute, untrammeled freedom.
It was the last wild space left.
It was, and it contrasted so violently with the emerging, disciplined, standardized, industrialized landscape that was starting to dominate the American East, all fueled by railroads and factory schedules.
So when Tom and Huck run to the river, they're running to the last sacred space. But let me challenge that for a second. If the river is freedom, why does Twain force them back to the restrictive town life? Is the book saying that this natural wild independence is ultimately unsustainable, that the modern world always wins in the end?
That is the central tragedy of the book, and the source material forces you to confront it. Twain recognized that complete, unanchored freedom, Huck's freedom, is often incompatible with the necessities of human connection and community, things Tom craves.
The validation.
Yes. The river offers escape, but the community offers validation, even if that validation is based on hypocrisy. Tom, driven by his ego, accepts the community's contract. Huck, driven by pure independence, rejects the contract, but is then forced into it by the gold. It's a lose-lose proposition for pure liberty.
Fascinating. So it positions Tom Sawyer not as a guide to freedom, but as a detailed map of the necessary compromises you have to make to survive in a modern organized society.
You've got it.
So if Twain was writing this elegy for compromise, what exactly was he so fiercely satirizing? Understanding the historical and cultural context of 1870s America is what transforms this book from a simple story into this piercing window into the past.
Well, the world was going through what historians call the Great Shift. Post-Civil War, America was aggressively moving toward a rigid, standardized, efficiency-driven existence.
We take things like synchronized clocks and schedules for granted.
Completely. But in Twain's time, this standardization fueled by railroads, factories, industrial timetables, it was actively replacing the natural rhythms of the agrarian past, a life dictated by the rising sun and the shifting times.
And this new structure was sold as civilizing, right? The promise was it would make people more productive, more moral, more successful.
Yes, but Twain saw the dark side. He viewed it chillingly as the industrialization of the human mind, the calculated pruning of the youthful spirit to fit a repetitive, predictable factory schedule.
And you see that pruning immediately in the book.
Oh, constantly. Aunt Polly's relentless focus on chores, the rigid scheduling of school, the mandatory memorization for Sunday school. These are all micro-expressions of that larger industrial system. They demand internal uniformity and absolute predictability from the child, just as the factory demands it from the worker.
And that standardization is exactly why he so aggressively satirized Victorian morality. He was targeting that infamous good boy archetype that was so prominent in the moralistic Sunday school books of the time.
We should probably elaborate on what that idealized child actually looked like, because Tom is its complete opposite.
Please.
The good boy archetype was this fictional construct demanding unquestioning obedience, deep, often performative piety, and just ceaseless productivity.
So a little robot.
Basically, this idealized child was clean, submissive, eternally grateful for guidance, and never indulged in the spontaneous, messy, or unprofitable act of play. His value was measured entirely by his moral output and his ability to prepare for adult labor.
And Tom Sawyer, described by critics as messy, selfish, impulsive, and profoundly real.
He was a deliberate, living antidote to that sterilized, morally perfect Victorian ideal. He refuses to be processed and packaged.
And this demand for conformity is just ruthlessly enforced in St. Petersburg. The sources make it so clear that the town is not a paradise. It's a claustrophobic community fueled by gossip, superstition, and a desperate need for conformity.
The town is always watching.
Always. And character quality was measured by the most superficial, easily observable metrics.
Like how many Bible verses you could rattle off, or how shiny your shoes were for church.
Or whether you showed the appropriate level of public reverence. It was pure performance culture.
And Tom navigates this environment like a spy behind enemy lines. He instinctively knows that a single forgotten prayer or a lapse in judgment could unleash the full, destructive weight of Victorian judgment on him.
He only plays their games to expose how hollow they are.
Exactly. He proves that the boys who stick to the good boy, rules like his annoying, pious half-brother Sid, they're miserable. While the bad boys, the ones who are awake to the overwhelming hypocrisy of the system, they're the ones truly experiencing a vibrant, independent life.
This brings us back to Tom's very intelligent economic rebellion. His small acts of defiance are not random pranks. They're a symbolic black market economy operating just outside the town's control.
Yeah, we're talking about him swapping a tooth for a dead tick, or trading his hard-earned Sunday school tickets.
The sterile currency of enforced piety.
Right, trading those for social capital like a kiss, or just a moment of admiration.
It really is the black market of the soul.
It is. He is consciously refusing the sterile, moralistic currency of the adult world. Let's break down the value system he's rejecting here. The Sunday school tickets represent standardized labor, forced obedience, the Protestant work ethic. You earn one for memorizing 10 verses.
They are the factory script.
And Tom uses them, not for some gilded prize society values, but for a visceral, ephemeral experience, swapping them for a tickus, a symbol of wild, untamed nature, or a kiss, a symbol of immediate, unpredictable human connection. It shows he values life, experience, and social influence over manufactured obedience and some future religious reward.
So it's Twain's powerful warning, delivered subtly. Society tries to make life purely transactional, productive, and monetizable.
But the truly free soul finds intelligent loopholes in that restrictive system. Tom is trading long-term abstract piety for immediate material freedom. He is gaming this system that was designed to exploit his time and spirit.
Okay, so now we pivot to the philosophical core of the book. If the context is the standardization of the mind, the foundational question driving the whole story is this eternal battle between freedom versus obligation. And nothing crystallizes this distinction better than the iconic fence painting scene.
This scene is so critical. It's often taught in schools as this charming little trick, but it's actually a deeply sophisticated analysis of human psychology, of scarcity economics, and the nature of labor itself.
Tom is faced with this massive, soul-crushing chore, a prison sentence that threatens to consume his entire Saturday.
And he executes the legendary fence hack.
Yeah.
He doesn't just delegate the labor, he redefines the very essence of the task. He defines work, as it's recorded in the text, as whatever a body is obliged to do.
And play.
Is whatever a body is not obliged to do. He recognizes the profound power of psychological framing over reality.
By strategically pretending the chore is this rare, almost artistic privilege.
Something only he is skilled enough to do that only the elite get access to.
He convinces the neighborhood boys to literally pay him with their most prized possessions. Marbles, a dead rat on a string, a kite, for the honor of doing his work.
He completely converts onerous labor into both profit and absolute freedom.
He didn't just get a fence painted. He successfully bought his freedom back with pure social capital. The sources rightly call him the world's first influencer.
He figured out the algorithm of human desire, that concept of engineered scarcity, long before the internet even existed. He made a mandatory chore seem desirable simply by limiting access to it.
And this is exactly why the book holds such currency today. We live in a world where every minute of our time, every click, every action is tracked and commodified by giant systems.
Tom's core refusal to be productive for someone else's agenda is presented by Twain as the ultimate modern rebellion. He showed us clearly that the only practical way to survive a system designed to exploit your time is to cleverly game the system itself.
But wait, doesn't that imply a really cynical view of creativity? Is Twain suggesting that all human endeavor, even art, is just manipulative framing designed to extract value from others? How do we know he's being critical here and not just celebrating a clever hustler?
That is a crucial question. The text suggests that Tom's actions, while manipulative, are fundamentally directed toward reclaiming his own time. The fence painting scene isn't celebrated as a path to eternal wealth, but as an immediate victory over obligation.
Ah.
He manipulates the system's rules to grant him a day of wild liberty, which he then uses to pursue genuine, non-monetized play. Twain critiques the system that created the obligation, not the cleverness required to escape it.
So he's using the language of capitalism to defeat the work ethic that underpins it.
Precisely.
But the light side of his rebellion, it just collapses under the weight of darkness. The freedom he bought is immediately challenged by the next major theme, the immense weight of guilt and secrecy.
Right. The psychological toll of the blood oath, that murder secret, is what transforms a book into a true psychological thriller. Tom is no longer worrying about chores. He is facing existential dread.
The text really emphasizes his isolation. He's hunted, tossing and turning, talking in his sleep. His subconscious is trying to force the confession he can't make while he's awake.
He truly believes he is completely alone in a world of monsters. The town, with its gleaming white fences and church bells, it instantly becomes this place of overwhelming secrets and whispers. It's hiding a violent underbelly that only he and Huck know about.
His conscience gnaws at him so relentlessly, so physically, that the golden days of summer feel like a permanent fever dream.
And this crushing burden of silence is so intense that the only practical emotional release is total symbolic escape.
Staging their own funeral and running to Jackson's Island.
They had to leave the structured world that was demanding they grow up too fast and go to a place where law and morality were replaced by the raw, simple demands of survival.
Which brings us to the ultimate heartbreaking irony of the ending, the irony of wealth.
Yes. When they finally emerge from the cave, having faced down death and found the path to the gold, the money they find is not freedom. It is a permanent brass-plated anchor that ties them to the very society they were trying to escape.
Twain delivers such a devastating critique of the American dream there.
He shows that wealth and success, the markers of achievement that society demands, often come only at the complete, ultimate cost of absolute freedom. Tom was clever enough to trick his friends into painting a fence, but he's not yet wise enough to realize that the moment he accepts that gold,
The fence has been built permanently around
a
him.
gilded cage he can never charm or hustle his way out of.
The ultimate success story is revealed to be the ultimate trap. Wow. The narrative tension in those final chapters is entirely powered by the dynamic between Tom and Huck. Their contrasting fates are where Twain delivers his final, sharpest critique of American culture. Let's start with Tom Sawyer, the master of the dramatic.
Tom is fundamentally driven by this mix of supreme, self-aware narcissism and this profound human insecurity. He doesn't just want to be free. He needs to be seen being free. He needs a grand theatrical stage.
He needed to metaphorically die in the eyes of the town to prove that he had ever truly lived and mattered in the first place.
Exactly. And his resurrection, that perfectly timed stage funeral scene, is often cited as the single most theatrical moment in American literature. He returns in his own memorial service, leading the previously mourned ghosts down from the gallery.
It's a performance of pure ego and absolute triumph. It's designed to extract the maximum possible social capital, the tears, the adoration, the forgiveness.
But this grand performance comes with an immediate, non-negotiable cost. By accepting the overwhelming tears and the suffocating hugs of the congregation, Tom unwittingly signs a contractual agreement with society.
He sacrifices his essential wildness.
He moves overnight from being a ghost, an anonymous rebel of the woods, to a permanent celebrity of the village. He wins the gold and the public glory, but he pays for it by losing his precious anonymity and independence. The critics are clear. The boy is dead, and only the icon remains.
He traded his raw liberty for social status.
Yep.
And then there is Huckleberry Finn, the prisoner of respectability.
Huck is the genuine article, the true escapee. He represents the natural boy who would infinitely rather sleep in a hogshead barrel free from obligation than endure the strictures of a mansion. He values absolute, immediate freedom above all else, even above basic comfort or safety.
And the ending just puts a knife directly to the throat of the perceived goodness of the American dream through Huck's fate.
It does. The $6,000 treasure instantly turns Huck into this deeply miserable prisoner. He is forcibly trapped by respectability, hauled into the confines of clean clothes, mandatory school, and the painful requirement of proper regulated speech.
Essentially, he is aggressively expected to surrender his wild, authentic soul for a bank account and social acceptance.
It's the ultimate tragic trade-off, and Twain ensures that Huck's misery is profoundly palpable and immediate. He rejects civilization so completely that he runs away.
And that intense tension of Huck's fate, his refusal to accept the gilded cage.
Is precisely what serves as the thematic bridge to Twain's next masterpiece, The Adventures of Huckleberry Finn. In that next story, the Mississippi River, the great brown god, becomes the necessary and permanent sanctuary once more. It's the only viable escape from the suffocating, soul-crushing pressure of organized civilization.
And we can't really discuss the book's emotional gravity without fully addressing Injun Joe, the genuine predator.
No, he's essential, because he represents true, external, unmotivated evil. He casts this massive, heavy pall over the town's flimsy surface charm and hypocrisy.
Twain makes sure that Injun Joe isn't just a cartoonish bully or a common thief.
Not at all. He's defined by cold steel violence, total moral emptiness, and a deep-seated desire for vengeance. He is the material realization of the dark secrets Saint Petersburg tries to pretend don't exist.
And his death scene is one of the most brutal and unflinching in all of American literature, and it feels deliberate.
Oh, completely. Finding him dead behind the heavy iron door of the cave, having tried to survive by literally eating candle ends before starving to death, it reflects a deep refusal by Twain to offer any easy redemption or sanitized ending for genuine destructive malice.
The punishment is visceral and physical. It matches the violence he inflicted.
It's the physical weight of reality, imposing itself on the narrative. The town, in its need for order, accidentally creates the instrument of ultimate agonizing justice. It reminds the reader that while Tom is focused on these petty social games, true, indifferent violence is always lurking just outside the white picket fence.
Okay, now let's dive into the artistry. The craftsmanship that elevates the story beyond a simple adventure. Twain's genius wasn't just in the plot, but in his literary technique. Specifically how he used physical space and language to reflect the character's psychological states.
Yes. We have to explore how setting functions as a character itself.
Let's break down the 3 key psychological locations. First, St. Petersburg.
We've established its surface charm, but Twain intentionally emphasized the violent underbelly, the hypocrisy, the gossip, the intense social pressure, and of course, the cold-blooded murder that happens within sight of the church.
It creates this palpable sense of tension. The town looks safe, warm, and orderly, but the very ground holds these terrible secrets.
It's a place where innocence is most effectively and painfully stripped away, precisely because the danger is hidden behind that reassuring mask of white fences and enforced piety. The contrast makes the reality even more terrifying.
Okay, second key location, Jackson's Island.
This is the last frontier of the American heart. It's a sacred temporary space of absolute, unregulated freedom. It's where society's rules and schedules just evaporate.
On the island, the boys are immediately stripped down to primal survival. They're pirates, outlaws, masters of their own destiny.
And Twain deploys incredible sensory details here. He doesn't just describe the woods. He makes you feel the heavy, oppressive silence of the dense forest at noon and the almost spiritual, pitiful cry of the whippoorwill at night.
And that's deliberate.
Completely. This natural world is immense, indifferent, and overwhelming. It contrasts so sharply with the petty, small-minded gossip of St. Petersburg. Nature is huge and unforgivingly real. The town is small and suffocatingly human.
The boys realize that while they're free, they're also utterly insignificant in the face of the great brown god. And finally, McDougal's cave, the labyrinth.
This is the ultimate crucible for Tom. Twain strips away the sunlight, the open sky, and the comforting predictability of the town, leaving Tom with nothing but pitch-black silence and the need to conserve his single precious light source.
It symbolizes Tom's unavoidable confrontation with his deepest fears.
And the necessity of stepping into true maturity to protect Becky. Every small detail, a wet piece of string, a sound echoing in the distance, becomes massive, terrifying, and significant in the dark. The cave is the only place in the novel where Tom cannot rely on charm or performance. Only resourcefulness matters.
Beyond setting, we have to talk about Twain's masterful use of dialect. This isn't just local color, is it?
No, it's a profound literary technique. He uses it to delineate class, moral standing, and authenticity.
Break that down.
Well, think about the layers. You have Aunt Polly's highly formal, judgmental, preachy language. It's the language of regulation in Sunday school.
Right.
Then you have Tom's slightly more flexible, charming language. He can move between the polite and the vernacular when he needs to.
But the truly significant contrast is Huck's raw vernacular.
Exactly. Huck speaks the language of the river, of the frontier, of uneducated but authentic experience. This language, unpolished, grammatically incorrect by Victorian standards, is ironically the most honest and truthful in the entire book. It is the language of freedom.
And Twain uses narrative irony constantly to critique the town.
Constantly. He contrasts the public's perception, the elaborate grief and mourning over the boy's supposed death, with the private, chaotic reality of the boys safe on the island, eating stolen ham and playing pirate. This constant gap between appearance and reality is the engine of his social satire.
The narrative is just built on these powerful symbols. The blood oath, which we talked about, is that primal rejection of adult law.
It's a covenant forged in terror and loyalty, and it supersedes any kind of civil justice for them.
And the candle stub. That single piece of wax is the fragile, burning, literal line between life and a horrible death in the cave.
It is the last shred of technology or light they have against the absolute power of the primordial dark.
And the kite line, the fragile, thin thread Tom uses as a tether to find his way back in the darkness. It symbolizes his tenuous, almost accidental connection to sanity and reality as he navigates that absolute, terrifying labyrinth.
All these techniques turn a simple adventure story into this sophisticated psychological dive into the American character.
So we've taken the source material, used critical analysis, and constructed a completely different, much darker picture of this classic than the one most of us inherited. Let's look at how the book was received then versus how we should view its influence now.
The book was largely and tragically misunderstood in its own time. Because it featured children, it was often just relegated to the category of a charming boy's story. A simple, nostalgic look back at rural youth.
So the initial critics just completely missed the satire.
They miss the sharp, cutting edge, the social satire, the moral panic, and the profound critique of industrial society. It was seen as entertainment, not instruction.
But today, especially after this kind of deep dive, we can recognize its core structure as a sophisticated blueprint for survival.
And a powerful, almost desperate protest against the industrialization and commodification of the human spirit. The satire of rigid conformity and the critique of track time. It resonates with enormous power for a modern audience burdened by the gig economy and constant digital surveillance.
Its influence on American literature is massive, undeniable.
It stands in many ways as the American Genesis. It marks the end of a perceived innocent pre-industrial world and the beginning of a complex modern one defined by that tension between individual wild freedom and necessary suffocating societal expectation.
And crucially, it fundamentally set the thematic stage for The Adventures of Huckleberry Finn, which many consider the greater American novel.
It did. Tom Sawyer cemented the Mississippi River as the ultimate spiritual symbol of wild, untamed American liberty, the essential, necessary refuge for those who fail, or more accurately, refuse to conform.
As we wrap up this deep dive, what struck you most about revisiting this material?
You know, it was the profound, crippling homesickness the boys felt while they were achieving their goal of absolute freedom on Jackson's Island.
Interesting.
They achieved perfect independence, but the irony is, you can successfully escape society, but you cannot escape the fundamental human need to be missed and accounted for.
I found that hollow feeling, despite the stolen ham and the grand pirate games, incredibly poignant and deeply human. My key takeaway for you, the listener, is to constantly focus on the difference between the gold, which is the victory, the successful integration into the town system, and the anonymity, which is the loss. Tom's ultimate celebrated victory was, in fact, a self-imposed life sentence of forced respectability.
And for me, the moment that truly hit differently was the sheer immense physical weight of nature, the river, the silence, the cave, and its total absolute indifference to the boys' petty human struggles. It just grounded their high drama story in this terrifying primal reality that reminds you how small human society really is.
Before we close the book on this, we need to circle back to that one final crucial detail about the fate of the villain.
Right, the sheer unflinching brutality of Injun Joe's death. Starving behind that iron door, reduced to the humiliating, desperate act of trying to eat candle ends. It's a visceral, uncomfortable reminder that the world Twain depicted did not offer easy redemptions, soft lessons, or clean breaks for genuine, unyielding evil.
The narrative structure itself punishes authentic malice with crushing realism.
It does.
And that harshness brings us directly to our final provocative thought for you to chew on. Tom Sawyer got the gold and the public glory. He became the celebrated icon of his village. But the book leaves us with this persistent, unsettling question. When you achieve success on society's terms, what essential independent part of your authentic soul do you inevitably leave behind in the dark labyrinth?
We followed the one who accepted the contract and achieved status this time. Next time, we explore the profound tragedy and exhilarating struggle of the one who tried to run away from it all.